Hunter x Hunter is a true work of art. Shonen Ouji, here to dig deeper into your favorite anime and manga, and in this video, I'm going to talk about why Hunter x Hunter is still considered one of the best anime of all time, and why I think it works, why I think it came to be looked at this way. Just to be clear, this is not a review, this is just my reflection on having watched the show for the first time and talking about the strengths of the show. I'm also not going to try and talk about like why some people might like it as number one as opposed to like One Piece or Naruto. I'm not going to do that. But to reflect on the show, I'm going to focus on the cast, the overall story, but also the stories of each arc, and then the deeper meaning that we can see throughout the course of the show. I know there's a lot more to talk about in Hunter x Hunter, but I'd like to just focus on those three so that the video isn't like 3 hours long. So with all that out of the way, let's start this off by talking about Gon. He's an interesting character. Now, when I first looked at him, like before I even watched the show, I was like, wow, this is like your typical shonen protagonist. Like, his hair is a literal spike. He's very like boyish. Like, I don't mean that like he's like got like the signs of upcoming masculinity, or he's like he's very much a man as opposed to a girl. No, I'm not like talking about his gender. I'm talking about like he looks like, and this is like something that pops up a lot in Hunter x Hunter, he looks like a Pokemon character. Like, in all seriousness, he kind of looks like a bug catcher from first gen Pokemon. But it all works to make him like a very recognizable protagonist of shonen. And while it speaks to Hunter x Hunter overall, like, Gon is like a typical shonen protagonist, but you also have these moments where he like strays from like the tropes of these protagonists. So like if you compare him to maybe Goku, like Goku is very stupid, but then when it comes to fights, all of a sudden he's a genius. Gon isn't necessarily stupid in general. He's just like a very simple person, as opposed to like your Goku, who's like, no, he's just stupid. Like, he's good at fighting, but he's just a stupid dude. Gon isn't really stupid, although he is like a very simple-minded character. Now, one thing I want to touch upon briefly is, I did not know this until I finished Hunter x Hunter, but I realized that they actually changed the very beginning in the 2011 anime. Apparently in the manga, and I didn't read the manga yet. I would like to because the show is freaking amazing. But apparently in the manga, the scene where Kite saves Gon on Whale Island is like the first few opening chapters. And I have to say, that doesn't ruin it for me. Like, I understand if you started out as like a manga fan and you saw that that's not where they started, you would be pretty upset, right? Like, this is the natural flow of the story. Why would they change that? But I kind of like it because, I don't know, like, in hindsight, I kind of like that Gon was 100% the causation for him leaving. Like, part of what I like about Gon is that he just does something. Like, for, I don't know, like 100 episodes, 50 episodes, we watch Gon go through all this training simply because he wants to punch some guy in the face. Not like because he wants to see world peace, or he wants to find, or like, he doesn't have a complicated motive. He literally just wants to punch some guy in the face. So when we see him leave Whale Island in the first few episodes, I like that it's not like, oh, this guy that saved me seemed cool, so I'm going to go do the same thing he does. I like that it's, okay, my dad was a hunter. I have no idea what my dad's like. I have no idea what being a hunter is like. But it must have been great because he left his dad, he left his home to go do it. So I'm just going to take a whack at this and figure out what it means to be a hunter. And personally, I kind of like that better than the manga beginning. Next, we'll talk about Leorio, and I know I'm going to butcher his name. He's also a very simple character, but I actually really like Leorio. Like, when I first met him, I thought he was, like, maybe a little annoying because he was almost, like, too black and white. Specifically, like, the way he looks at the world. Like, it's made very clear that he's somebody who has his problems, but he knows right from wrong, and he's a good guy. And I like that about him, but I don't know, something about the way he was presented, it was like a little too black and white. Like, it was, I don't know, it was almost like cliche how he was always like in that like, oh, this isn't the way the world should work, like mindset. Like, it's very unfortunate that his friend got sick, and that's his motivation for being a doctor. I don't think that's like poorly written. I was just finding myself feeling like it was cliche, but in retrospect, it works for Leorio because I liked it. I guess what I found annoying about him, I now like because I'm like over the fact that it might feel cliche. Because I like that in all the chaos of the world and all the confusion of being a hunter, Leorio is always like the moral I wouldn't call him the moral anchor, but he's a good guy and he knows right from wrong, and he doesn't let like established social norms get in the way. He just knows what's right. Now we have Kurapika, and Killua really, really struck me because, I don't know, it's almost like the creator took Sasuke and like split him in two so that they could do what they wanted to do with Sasuke, or write Sasuke like 2.0, because Killua is like all the family problems of Sasuke, but we have Kurapika, and he's got this same revenge mindset. Like, oh, my clan, my family was killed, and I have to avenge them. And like Sasuke, it like totally takes over his life. But unlike Sasuke, where it goes on for the whole season, and then when it's no longer a problem and he comes up with some baloney excuse to keep being a D-bag, Kurapika kills one person, not 10, not 20, not 50, not half a village. He kills one person. Easily, like, barely even tries. Kills one person. And afterwards is so drained, like visibly drained to the point of like exhaustion and like almost sickness, but also emotionally drained. And it just puts such a strain on him. And after you see him win that fight, and after you see all the events of York New, you see Kurapika like reach a crossroads where he's like, what have I been doing? Like, this is a gigantic waste of my life. And I don't know that he comes to like a full conclusion that he can't do this anymore. Like, it's gonna be too much of a toll. But you see the weight it has on Kurapika after all those events. So I like that that's where Kurapika goes, because it makes sense. Like, if you devote your life to revenge, or even like on a more relatable, smaller scale, if you like devote all your thoughts to hating someone or trying to get back at someone, it is such a gigantic waste of time, and it's just taxing on you. So I like that it's not like Sasuke, where we're like babied through this idea that, oh, if only I'd gotten away with it, or like, oh, well, I guess it's not okay because peace is better. Like, it's a perfect presentation of you can't live your life like that because it's going to end up destroying you. So, Kurapika is a cool character, and he starts out as, he's a good guy, but as we see, he figures out, at least a little bit, that he's got to change his ways because it's bad for him and it's bad for the people around him. Finally, we have Killua, and like I said, he's like a part of Sasuke, or the Sasuke type character, in the sense that he has his family that he's not necessarily a gigantic fan of. So, because the way he was raised, it makes him edgy at times, but he's a good accessory or supplement to Gon, because I wouldn't call him a contrast, but he's good to have next to Gon because he starts out edgy and then Gon is like very sweet and simple. So it's interesting to see them grow together. But what I like about Killua is that he starts out as like the genius, the one who just like gets it at the beginning. But as the show goes on, it's shown that a lot of that was his upbringing. And as Gon gets stronger and they grow together, they're a lot more even. So I like Killua. I like his lightning ability. I like that despite his edginess, he's still able to be like the calm one. And overall, I just think he's like personally one of my favorite like buddy characters in anime, because seeing him and Gon like grow together and go on these adventures together, I can't say it's like my number one favorite, but it's definitely one of my favorite friendships in anime. Now, before I talk about the deeper meaning of the show, I want to address the story arcs, and let's talk about the exam. The exam was so interesting because personally I thought the very first episode wasn't bad, but like a lot of Hunter x Hunter at first glance, I was like, wow, this is like a very typical shonen. But as soon as like everything started turning in the Hunter exam, I was like, wow, okay, this is not like a boring, like this is not your typical anime, in the sense that like all of a sudden people started dying left and right. I was like, okay, all right, I guess we're doing that. Damn. Um, and that's something that continues, but we'll get to that when we get to that. But I like the Hunter exam because it's not like a boring like tournament type arc, which don't get me wrong, I like tournaments, but like it speaks to Hunter x Hunter in the sense that like Hunter x Hunter is able to feel like your typical shonen, but not like be subject to the tropes of shonen. So I think the exam arc is really interesting to watch, and it's very entertaining, and I like the way it's set up. Like a good example is when they're like inside the tower and they're doing that like little mini tournament with the prisoners, and it's not based just on like fighting strength. It's based on like who can outthink the other person and use time. I thought the exam arc was very well written. The only thing that like kills you if you're trying to get hooked on the show is it doesn't like specifically address like what the heck is a hunter. So if you're somebody that is like very nitpicky, you might get lost in that first arc because you're like, all right, that's great that he's becoming a hunter or that they're becoming hunters, but what the heck is a hunter? Like I'm still however many episodes in and I don't know what a hunter is. So I guess if you're an impatient person, you might get lost in the exam arc. Next we have Heaven's Arena, and again, this was like it was similar to the exam in that like this like felt more like your typical shonen, that it was very like fighty, it was very like, I don't know, it almost felt like I was watching like early Pokemon because of like this tournament feel. But again, it managed to like not feel like it was subject to the tropes, but it was very entertaining to watch. It had like this 90s nostalgia to it, at least for me. Um, and it was just interesting to have it like end with Hisoka because again, it's like, I don't know, you're maybe like 80 episodes in towards the end of Heaven's Arena, and the whole goal so far has been I want to punch Hisoka in the face. So again, I like that like the show doesn't try too hard to like be sophisticated. At least at this point, it's like, nope, we're just trying to punch a guy in the face. But don't worry, because all that sophistication, it's coming. So then we have York New, and York New blew me away in that it was not what I expected it to be at all. I expected it to be them fighting the troop and a lot of like 1v1 fights before one of them fights the boss. But no, that's not what happens. What we got instead was the Kurapika show, where Kurapika showed us how ridiculous his Nen is. Kills the one guy, and then, like I said earlier, he has that moment of reflection afterwards. But it's a series of like mind games and like, okay, who can out trick the other person, which is a reoccurring trend in the show where there's fights and there's really good fights, but the hallmark of the show, at least for me, is like these little mind battles and these like little chess games that the characters play with each other. And it makes it more entertaining because like 20 fights later, you're not just like, oh my god, like playing another. Like it's literally like, it's like at some point in Shonen, it's like playing Pokemon where you're like 50 trainers in and you're like, oh, I have to do this again. That's what it feels like sometimes in Shonen. You watch so many consecutive fights, you're like, oh, another one. No, when you watch these little mind games, it's like, all right, I get this. I'm like, with York New, I was constantly like, okay, where is this going next? And I think it speaks to how well written York New is. So then we have Greed Island, and Greed Island is another arc that speaks to like 90s type nostalgia, or whatever you want to call it, early 80s, because of all things, the game is on like an NES type console, which I thought was freaking awesome because who doesn't like playing like Super Mario and old school Nintendo games? But to continue that trend of like mind games, I like Greed Island is deceptively simple, but what I like about it is that it adds like the game rules and like all the cards, because you're like in the back of your head you're like convinced that you have the show figured out because you just saw all this use of Nen, but then you have all the cards added, so now you have this whole new like little world of Greed Island, and you have all these new rules of cards. So when you see everything happen in Greed Island, you don't know what to expect because you have all these new rules and you really don't know what could happen. And then finally, we have the Chimera Ant arc. And I get that the previous arcs weren't like very simple, but I don't know, something about the beginning of Chimera Ant, like I woke up when I watched Chimera Ant. Specifically, there was the one scene where the one Chimera shot the girl with the hat with the bees. He shot her out of like that one scene where they beat that like crew of hunters, and then the one Chimera shoots her out of nowhere. Like this Chimera comes out of nowhere and just unloads a whole clip, and all you see is her body just like jolting. I was like, they just did that. It was like so, it had so much weight to it because like I don't know, the whole show felt like shonen, and then all of a sudden you see the scene where this character gets a whole clip unloaded on them, and you're just like, wow, that just got real. Like, that just got dark. And I think it was freaking awesome. But Chimera Ant overall, before I talk about like the deeper meaning of Chimera Ant and then the show, what I like is that, first of all, they didn't bring in Kurapika and Leorio because, let's be honest, it gets a little boring when you see the main cast over and over and over again. And what I like is that they brought in other hunters because there's more than like 4 people in the world. So let's get some other characters going. And it worked out because these hunters that we see, like Knuckle and Shoot and Moral and the rest of them, they're freaking awesome characters. So it speaks to the idea that we don't have to have our like main secondary characters, for lack of better terms. They don't have to be attached to the hip of the main character, and it works out for the best. And I like the way Chimera Ant turned out as far as like its plot, because like Greed Island, you never knew quite where it was going, you never knew quite what to expect, and each episode was suspenseful, each episode was very entertaining. The fights were freaking awesome, and the like philosophy of Chimera Ant wasn't necessarily okay. It was a little in your face, especially with all the chess games in the middle of like a giant freaking battle, but it was done tastefully, in my opinion. So let's talk about the deeper meaning of Chimera Ant, but more so like the show in general. Hunter x Hunter is a work of art in the sense that it gives you its answers, but even like right in front of you, you don't quite know what to do with them. Now, let me explain that a bit. When we start with Hunter x Hunter from episode 1 and on, we know Gon's goals. His very first goal, become a hunter. So at face value, you're like, all right, that's simple enough. He's going to go become a hunter. But you don't know what a hunter is. You don't know what hunters do. So when you see the characters become hunters, you're like, okay, I guess I know what a hunter is. So then you see, like, throughout the course of the show, like, what hunters commonly do. But it's not until the end of the show where we have that, like, sit down with Jing, and he asks Jing, like, why did you become a hunter? Like, why'd you bother doing all this? And Jing, like, thinks of, like, how to put it, and he says something to the effect of, I want to go find that which isn't in front of me right now. Like, that which I can't see right now. And I think that is one of the best keys for success or a happy life that I've ever heard. To search for to search what isn't in front of me right now. I love that because Jing is, for lack of better terms, he's like the ultimate good. Not like in like terms of morality, but like he's Gon's like compass, right? Like Gon bases all his decisions off of what he imagines Jing to be like and what he imagines Jing thinks you should do in life. And when he finally meets Jing, he's also a very simple character, but he has this age to him, this wisdom to him. And you find out, like, he's a very simple dude, but he has such a deep goal, which in essence is to seek truth. And I think that's the perfect key for anyone's life. Find truth, because, and obviously it's a little more complicated than just find truth, like on the cover of a freaking self-motivation book, but find that which isn't in front of you right now. It's such a good like goal for Gon, but also for viewers, because like if you just look for what's true in life and you just look for what you don't know, so many good things will happen to you, and so many like developments will occur in you, and you see that as a natural consequence with Gon. Now, I want to move on to Chimera Ant. Chimera Ant, again, is interesting because, like, me personally, I found myself constantly like, okay, I think I know what's going on here. But, like, every time the story of that arc continued, I, like, found myself thinking, okay, I thought I knew. I think this is where this is going. Okay, I thought I knew. This is probably where it's going. And then I don't think it clicked until we meet Komugi. And Komugi and the whole thing with Metarum, it was so interesting because, again, they're literally like taking the fact that they're speaking to like power and resolve and feelings and the power of friendship and all that. They're taking all that, they're literally putting it in your face. Like, here it is. You better know that we're talking about this. And again, even when it's like so close that you can smell it, you don't quite know what the author is trying to say, which I think speaks to the idea that Hunter x Hunter is a true work of art, because the truth and the meaning and the deeper meaning of the show is literally right in front of you, like a painting, but it could be interpreted in so many ways. Now, personally, I'm still wrestling with a lot of the deeper meaning of the show, but my understanding of Chimera Ant is that humans have such a wide spectrum of emotions, and it's our capacity for such great sympathy that also makes us capable of such like twisted, wicked, messed up stuff, which is why I freaking love the ending of the Netero and Meruem fight, where he kills himself, sets off a bomb, and then the last words you see him say are to the effect of, don't underestimate the resolve of humans. And I freaking love that. And again, I can't quite articulate it, but it really speaks to this idea that humans can be very kind creatures for no reason at all, but they can also be very messed up. And that's what they have over animals, is animals and chimera, they can be very powerful and they can dominate humans, but they'll never quite have this capacity for twisted, wicked deeds to the point where they can like sit down and contemplate ways to torture people, nail them on crosses, put them in tiny chambers and gas them to death. So I really like that, at least to me, what I got from Chimera, and I think what most people would get from Chimera, is the idea that what's unique about humanity is our capacity for such a wide array of sophisticated emotions. And just in general, I like this message because Shonen is very good about speaking to the human spirit and why humans are so unique. But Hunter x Hunter specifically addresses like why humans are so unique. Like other shows will show that humans like aren't just like animals, but Hunter x Hunter shows like what it means truly to be human. And again, while I might have my answer, you might have your answer, at the end of the day, there truly is no right answer. And that's why it's like such a work of art. So I guess what works for Hunter x Hunter is longevity, having been released a long time ago and still talked about as one of the greats, is it has such deeper meaning and it's well written, but the way it's presented is open to interpretation, and it isn't like wrapped up nicely for viewers and for them to just like watch and figure out what the show means. It's presented in a way where it's like very in your face and you still have no idea what you should be thinking. Like, you know, like you have an idea of what you should be thinking, but at the end of the day, it's grounds for great conversation. So I think what makes Hunter x Hunter so great is it has very deep truth to it that I think every person should make a part of their life, whether it's the lessons of what it means to be a hunter and why you should seek truth. And like Jing says, and I freaking love, you need to value the little moments of life and you need to like treat life like an adventure. Or whether it's Chimera Ant and you need to take in consideration the fact that you have these emotions that can guide your decisions. So you need to like think about them, reflect them, and make them a part of your life, or otherwise you're just going to be a mindless animal. Hunter x Hunter gives you these ideas, but it also allows you to wrestle with them and allows you to interpret the show in your own way. And I think this is why Hunter x Hunter is so beautiful. And that is it for my reflection on Hunter x Hunter and my journey with Hunter x Hunter. I know there's a lot more to talk about, like Nen is like a power system, and the fights and the animation. Those are all very good, but I wanted to talk about the cast, the story, and the deeper meaning, because I think those are what contributes to the show's longevity. But I really do hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to like the video because it really supports me and the channel. Make sure you subscribe to the channel because I'm going to do more content like this where I do in-depth analysis type videos. If you like One Piece reviews, if you like My Hero Academia, make sure you subscribe because that's what's coming up. Make sure to follow me on Twitter because I am pretty active and you can follow me along. I'm probably going to start Full Metal Alchemist for the first time, so if you want to see me go through that journey, make sure to follow me on Twitter because I'll keep you updated. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Again, comment. Let me know. What do you think about Hunter x Hunter? What did I miss? Please let me know. Thank you, and I hope to hear from you soon.